Chapter. We're talking real money.
Well, it must be Friday again, and I'm Don McDonald. So it's Friday, and I'm Don McDonald, which means I'm answering questions. That's just me. And you sent your questions in. Although we could use a few more. If you really want to get them answered, just go to talkingrealmoney.com and send them in on the contact form. Preferably speak them, because those are the ones I use on Friday, the spoken ones. The written ones we use whenever. So go to talkingrealmoney.com, click on the contact form, then click on the mic, record your question, and then we'll get that answered. I'll get that answered on a Friday show. Thank you so much for tuning in, joining us, being a part of the podcast. And let's just dive right in to our first question.
Hi, guys. With the new rules related to 529 plans and Roth IRA transfers, included with how liberal the rules are towards being able to move a 529 plan from relative to relative to relative, et cetera, is there a case to be made that you could load up a 529 with as much money as possible and possibly use that as an additional retirement bucket? I know that you can't use the last 5 years' earnings or contributions to transfer out to a Roth IRA, but say that you loaded up a Roth IRA for one child, it grows over 18 years to a substantial amount of money, and then at the end of that time period, the child gets a full ride scholarship and doesn't need any of that money. You could transfer $35,000 out over the $7,000 per year period to him, and then transfer the entirety of the account, change the beneficiary over to a sibling, cousin, aunt, uncle, all the allowable rules. And then could that money then be transferred over for $35,000 to whoever the new beneficiary is, and so on and so on? It seems like this would be too good to be true as far as a retirement planning, estate plan tool for your entire lineage. I've been looking around and can't find anything against it, but who knows? I know $35,000 isn't that much money, but if you can do it for an 18-year-old that's not going to be needing the money for a long period of time, it can turn into some pretty substantial stuff. So love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I did a lot of research. I wanted to make sure I was right on this because this is a new rule. It just came into effect in January of 2024. So the IRS hasn't ruled on a lot of the specifics of this rollover plan. But from what I can tell, I'm relatively confident that what you describe, as long as you followed all the other rules, like the account has been established for 15 years, it was set up 15 years before the rollover, then it appears to me that the $35,000 annual transfer, again, as long as they have enough in earnings and you don't exceed the annual amount, whatever that is in each year in the future, that when they're done with their $35,000, you can then transfer the remainder of those assets to another beneficiary, and they can essentially do the same thing and over and over and over again. So, yeah, it looks like this is fine. Again, this is, even those who give tax advice are going to tell you that the IRS can interpret things all kinds of different ways. But as things stand right now, from everything I could find, and I did some really in-depth research on this, I see no reason why you can't do it. Thank you for your question. Thank you for being a part of the show. And now we go on to the next.
Hello, Don and Tom. I'm calling to, one, inquire about merch. I still have my Don McDonald baseball cap. And two, I have a question. I have 3 homes. I have 1.3 in a Vanguard account and 710 in a deferred comp through the state. And I have a relative who is interested.
I'm assuming, is how you're going to finish that word. The only reason I'm putting this question in is to let the person who sent it in know that for some reason their voice vanished. There was a long recording, but there was no sound. So you might want to do that again, and we'll tease this question for a future Q&A episode. Hopefully the person will call back. Now, here's another one, and this one's all there.
Hey, Don and Tom. On your episode 102, I think it was called something about your cash or something, you talked to a caller about contributing to a 529 rather than just saving in a brokerage account for their grandchildren, I believe it was. You said that you could just move this money right into a Roth once the child is now working. I thought this had a 15-year hold period before you could do that. And there's also the limitations of how much you can contribute to a Roth each year, which I don't think you mentioned that either. Can you go over what these rules are? The information I have is probably a year old, but that's what I had heard. Thanks for all you do.
You're absolutely right. We've mentioned it before, maybe not in that episode, but we've mentioned this a lot, the whole Roth thing. It is subject to the annual limits, of course, and that right now is $7,000. It's the annual limits for Roth. You must have $7,000 in earned income. You can't just put $7,000 from a 529 into a Roth if you don't have at least that much income. And the Roth has to have been established for 15 years. That's one of the rules for this particular process. So you're right on both points. Otherwise, it's a relatively straightforward process. And I think it's a wonderful benefit because a lot of people didn't want to establish a Roth out of fear that maybe the child or grandchild wouldn't go to college or participate in some sort of higher education. And remember, trade schools are included in that. Even some college education is covered, private schools and the like. So there are a lot of ways to spend it, but this Roth one, wow. I mean, I would just, if I could afford to do it for a kid, I would probably overfund their 529 just so there would be $35,000 there to get them started on a Roth retirement account. I just think this thing is so valuable. Thank you for the follow-up and the question. It's kind of been Roth day so far. Now, we have another question that came in from TalkingRealMoney.com on the contact form and then recorded by clicking that little microphone button there.
Hey, Tom and Don, Mike from Colorado calling. Once again, I just love your show, and I love how quick you guys get back to answering our questions. And I've got one in particular that hopefully you can help me out. I think I know the answer, but I just want to get some clarification. I'm currently carrying the Ultimate Buy and Hold portfolio that Paul Merriman recommends, and I love it. I love getting involved with it, rebalancing, all that stuff. But I'm doing some advanced tax planning, and I'm using a really nice tool from dinkytown.net, and it's a financial calculator. It pretty much allows me to estimate exactly what taxes I will owe by the end of the year and where my taxable income is going to be by the end of the year. And I've done some calculating, and basically I'm retired now, but I've got about $6,000 left to hit the upper tier of the 12% joint married filing joint tax bracket of $94,300. So if I take $6,000 more and convert over to a Roth, I hit $94,300 as my taxable income. The issue I have is I've got a pretty good amount of dividends, qualified dividends in my taxable account, and I was looking at that tax bracket. And as you know, there's a 0, a 15, and a 20% bracket for qualified dividends. And I'm trying to stay in the 0% if I can do it. And it says $0 to $94,050 is the married filing joint bracket to get 0% on qualified dividends. So I guess my question is, if I go over to $94,300, literally $250 over that tax bracket, would it bump me automatically into the 15% qualified dividend payout? That's my question. And if the answer is yes, obviously I won't convert $6,000. I'll convert $5,750 just to make that 94,050 qualified dividend bracket. Hope that all makes sense. Love your show again. Have a great day. Bye.
I don't know why we have such a convoluted, confusing tax system. Well, I do. I just don't like it. I just don't like it. It should be a lot simpler, don't you think? It's to try to manipulate and change behavior and reward certain income and penalize other income. But, the lack of – it's so funny that when it comes to qualified dividends, that when you cross into $94,051, the dividend rate is 15%. It is 15%. And it's 15% all the way up to $583,750 for married filing jointly. So, yes, reduce your Roth conversion appropriately, because you will pay the 15% bracket on qualified dividends. All right. Thanks for that. And we have one more question coming up that came in again through talkingrealmoney.com on the contact form. Here it is.
Hi, Don and Tom. I really enjoy your show. I'm 62, just recently retired. My wife is 57, and she's going to work for 3 more years. We have a net worth of about $2.6 million. We're well diversified in index funds, about an 80-20 split. We've got 403B, Roth, traditional IRAs, brokerage account, and real estate. We've got a paid-off rental house that provides some income. We owe only on our current mortgage about $310K at 2.99%, so we feel pretty good about that. My question concerns my mother's reverse mortgage. We would like to pay that off. She owes about $210K on it, and the house is worth $300 plus. She's 84, almost 85, and she keeps doing upgrades. She wants new windows. She put in a new driveway, and all of this stuff is going to go to the bank. And we would rather just pay off the reverse mortgage and have her keep doing that if she wants to, and then that just helps the value of the house. Now, paying off the reverse mortgage would hit our liquidity pretty hard, though, but I think it would be a really good investment over the long run, regardless of how long she lives. The problem is how to pay for that. I have $156K in my Roth. Wife has about $134K, but she's not yet eligible to touch her earnings. But I would like to use Roth money to pay off Mom's reverse mortgage. We have no heirs, and we have many years of growth, and this seems like a good time to tap into it and use it. We'll have about 5 years of low income until I turn 70 and take Social Security that we can use to do some Roth conversions and put some of that back. But curious what you guys think about this plan. Like I said, the only thing I'm really worried about is it cuts into our liquidity. But that's why I want to use the Roth money. Of course, that kind of stings a little bit, but it seems like it's worth it at this point. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I got to tell you, I would not touch a Roth. I think Roth should remain sacrosanct for as long as possible because that tax-free growth is so valuable. It really does add a tremendous benefit. It can add a 15 to 20% benefit. More if you're in a higher bracket, but it doesn't sound like you are. Oh, and then there's the whole question of whether it makes sense to do it from a financial standpoint. Because she's not required to pay this money back while she's alive. So she's not paying anything on this. It is reducing the equity in the house as interest accrues. But there's really not a lot of equity to be concerned about, and I don't see where the substantial return to you is. Let's assume for a second that she was to pass soon. Well, as it stands right now, if the balance on the $210,000 reverse mortgage is correct, then they would liquidate the house, pay off the reverse mortgage, and the estate would have about $90,000, which is almost exactly where you'd be if you paid it off. So I don't see where all I see to you is a detriment, not a benefit. Now, if you were to take this money from pure liquidity, you just had a big cash pile sitting there, not in an IRA. And if you've got that much money uninvested in a Roth, get it invested. If you're an 80-20 investor, you should, if you're that aggressive, that money, you shouldn't have cash sitting in Roths. There should never be cash sitting in Roths, because that's where you should have your big money makers, because you don't pay taxes on them. However, I'm just not feeling the benefit. I'm really not feeling the benefit. If she had a mortgage on which she was making payments and it was at a high interest rate or something, then I could see a benefit. It gives your mom more spending money. But in this case, not a fan of the plan. Unless I'm missing something, I am not a big fan of the plan. I don't see who benefits from it. I guess unless she lives for a very, very long time, then the equity will get eaten up, but that would take quite a while. $210,000, the interest on $210,000. I mean, over that time, as that principal is eroding due to the interest, well, your Roth IRA money is going to be making money tax-free, which I would guess would be more money. It should be. So I'm not feeling the benefit. I really don't. I don't think I would do something like this. But thank you so much for the question. I really appreciate it. And if you have any follow-up thoughts about why this works, let us know. But I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. Don't see a benefit to her or you. If you have questions you'd like to send them in so that I can answer them or Tom can answer them, go to talkingrealmoney.com and click on the contact form. That'll give you two ways to ask a question. You can type it or you can speak it, either which is great. And there's one other way to ask us questions, and that is to call us on Saturdays, the day after Friday. We begin taking your questions at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and we do it until 5. That's 2 full hours, close to 2 full hours of opportunity to have a conversation. And it's easy to do. You just call us between 3 and 5 Eastern, noon to 2 Pacific, at 855-935-TALK, 855-935-8255, while we're doing our live West Coast radio show that becomes a podcast the next week. So call us Saturdays, 855-935-8255, or go to talkingrealmoney.com for your questions. And either way, when it all is said and done, we are, in fact, just talking real money.
The opinions and views expressed on this podcast were current on the date recorded. Opinions, estimates, forecasts, and statements of financial market trends that are based on current market conditions constitute our judgment and are subject to change without notice, including any forward-looking estimates or statements which are based on certain expectations and assumptions. Although information and opinions given have been obtained from or based on sources believed to be reliable, no warranty or representation is made as to their correctness, completeness, or accuracy. Information presented on the podcast is not personalized investment advice from Appella Wealth. The views and strategies described may not be suitable for everyone. This podcast does not identify all the risks, direct or indirect, or other considerations which might be material to you when entering any financial transaction. Past performance does not guarantee future results, and profitable results cannot be guaranteed. We hope you realize that the information provided on Talking Real Money is for informational, educational, and hopefully enjoyable purposes only. The podcast is not trying to get you to buy or sell any financial products or securities. Instead, the program is provided as a public service by Appella Wealth, a fee-only registered investment advisor. Please see Appella Wealth's ADV Part 2A on our website for information regarding Appella's fees and services. Appella Capital, LLC, DBA Appella Wealth, is an investment advisory firm registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. The firm only transacts business in the states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration with the SEC or any state securities authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Appella does not provide tax or legal advice, and nothing either stated or implied here should be inferred as providing such advice. Thanks for listening, and please visit TalkingRealMoney.com for more information and important disclosure related to performance of any specific index or fund quoted in this podcast. And the lawyers get richer.